All right, let's get started. Hello, everyone. Welcome and thank you for logging in for our webinar today. My name is TJ Cantwell, and I'm the Executive Director at the NCCCO Foundation. At the NCCCO Foundation, we're working hard to improve the crane industry for everyone working in the load handling field by enhancing safety through research, education, and workforce development programs. You can learn more about the Foundation programs, safety tools, research reports, and future webinars at NCCCOFoundation.org. Today's webinar is What's Changed with the ASME B30 Standards. During our webinar, our speaker will discuss recent changes to the ASME B30 standards, current standards under consideration, as well as potential future work of the committee. I'll be acting as moderator. We'll conduct a Q&A session at the end of today's webinar. So if you have any questions during the webinar, please type them in the Q&A box as we go, and we'll address as many as possible during the Q&A portion at the end. Please note that today's webinar is being recorded so we can share with others. Before we start, I want to provide a brief introduction to our great speaker. Jeremy Van Egeren is the Director of Product Safety and Manitowoc Cranes, where he is responsible for the lattice crawler crane product line. As the Director of the Product Safety, he manages product safety programs and processes with emphasis on establishing safety criteria for the products. Jeremy represents the company in dealing with government regulatory agencies, industry standards organizations, and litigation. He has a bachelor's degree of science and mechanical engineering from the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. He is the current chair of the ASME B30.5, a member of the B30.8, and an alternate on the B30 Main Committee and B30.23 Committee. Welcome to all of you. On behalf of myself and our audience, I want to thank you for taking the time, Jeremy, out of your busy schedule to be with us today. Now, without any further ado, I'll let you get into it.
Hey, thank you, TJ, for the introduction, and hello, everyone. TJ, I'm not sure if I'm able to. There we go.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
there you go.
It's working now. There we go. So, welcome everyone to the webinar on updates to the ASME B30 standards. TJ did a great job, set the stage with my introduction. Just to add a few items, I've been with Manitowoc Cranes for 25 years, and most of my time has been spent in the engineering group or product safety. So I also serve on several other crane industry committees. So I serve on AEM Crane Technical Committee, SAE Crane and Lifting Devices Committee, and more recently, I just got approved to become an alternate commissioner for CCO and sit on the Mobile Crane Exam Committee. So as chair of the B30.5 committee, I just need to make it clear that today I am not speaking on behalf of ASME in any way or any of the ASME B30 committees. The information in my presentation are my personal opinions. So to kick things off, I had the chance to review the previous presentations that were done by NCCCO on ASME B30 updates. What stood out to me in those presentations was that some of the information that was presented regarding the publication dates just didn't happen. Publication dates were pushed off for as much as a full year from where they were previously indicated. So I've decided to add a couple additional pieces of information to this presentation so those not involved in standards development can understand the steps and processes that ASME goes through and how you may be able to become involved in the standards development process. So to do so, I want to start out with going over our learning objectives for today. So who makes up the ASME B30 committees? Who's doing the participations? What kind of equipment is being covered by our standards? And then we'll dive into what the updates are and when they're occurring. So this slide shows the the structure of the B30 committees. The committees are made up, the B30 main committee is made up of 45 members. Each one of those members can also have an alternate. These members and alternates represent a broad range of industry experts that represent crane owners, users, manufacturers, insurance companies, inspectors, trainers, lifting component manufacturers, and regulatory agencies. Additionally, to the main committee, there are 29 subcommittees that are currently active. These subcommittees are subordinate groups to the main committee, and they may have members that reside on the main committee, but then they also may have members that only participate at the subcommittee level. The tasks related to the subcommittees are to develop and make proposals that are reviewed at the main committee, and then the main committee either approves the proposal or sends it back to subcommittee for further development. The equipment that is covered within these 29 subcommittees, I usually try to break them up into a couple different buckets. There are machine volumes, which highlight cranes. Some of those volumes, for example, would be like the 0.3 Tower Cranes Committee, 0.5 Mobile and Locomotive Cranes Committee, 0.6 is derricks. Another bucket would be the component volumes, which focus on lifting devices, such as 0.9 for slings, 0.10 for hooks, 0.30 for ropes. And then finally, the last bucket would be the use volumes, which more focuses on applications for the lifting. Some examples would be 0.8 for floating cranes, 23 is for personnel lifting systems, and then 32 for unmanned aircraft systems used in inspection, testing, maintenance, and lifting operations. So getting into when updates occur for these volumes, volumes can either be under what we call periodic maintenance or continued maintenance. So depending on what kind of maintenance schedule these volumes are on, it dictates what kind of rules revolve around the revision process. And for most B30 standards, it's common for them to be under continued maintenance. So with continued maintained standards, the revision cycles are either 3 or 5 years. But those times can change depending on the publication process and potential roadblocks that can arise during that process. So in the next slide, we'll discuss the revision cycle further and what updates are being included. So as you can see here, the left column of the screen, we have revisions that were supposed to be published in 2024. This is information that was provided in the 2024, the last presentation for ASME updates. As you can see, most of those standards did not publish in 2024. There's only 3 out of the 11 that published, and I've updated and indicated which revision dates, when those revision dates occurred. Okay, now we're on the right slide. So, I guess the question arises, why did so many of those volumes miss their publication date? And you know, I guess my thought behind that is that the publication process has some complexity to it. So as you can see on the right side, I've listed out the different steps related to publication. Once the subcommittees develop the ballots, they go to B30 for main committee approval. Once those ballots are approved and ready for publication, the new ballots and new information is then sent out to the public under the public review and comment phase. So the public has the opportunity to comment on any changes, which leads to maybe one of the first areas where it's difficult to predict when a volume will be published. Any comments that are proposed by the public have to be addressed by the committee, and it has to go through an approval process. And if the person who makes the comment doesn't agree with the response, then they can appeal that decision up to a higher level. Once all public review comments have been addressed, then there's supervisory board and administrative reviews. The next step in the publication process would be an editorial review of the volume. And I can state, at least for B30.5, because I'm the chair of that committee, that during the last editorial review for the latest revision, there was over 100 editorial comments and recommendations that the editors went through. So just going through those 100 different changes that they're proposing certainly takes time for the committee to address. Finally, ANSI has to review the entire publication process and make sure that processes and procedures have been followed. So moving on, since the last presentation was in 2024, I'll briefly go over the changes to each of the volumes that published in 2025. We're going to start out in the left column for B30.3, which is tower cranes. That volume published September of 2025. And what you'll see in a lot of these updates are that there's some common themes. The first item, the incorporation of ASME B30.30 standards for wire ropes, was included as one of the updates. That's one item that you'll see throughout some of these updates. B30.30 was originally published in 2019. Once 3030 was published, rope experts assisted all of the different subcommittees, and they assisted them to make a determination if the wire rope requirements in each of the volumes was adequate, or if they should try to incorporate 3030 within their volumes. So other updates to B30.3 were a new lift plan section was added. There were updates to operator responsibilities, and there was also updates to address wind speed during climbing, electrical hazards, multiple line operation, and operational aids. Another volume that is fairly popular is B30.5 in the right column at the top for mobile cranes and locomotive cranes that published December of 2025. So the changes within B30.5 were the incorporation of the B30.30 standards for wire ropes. We revised definitions for the superstructure and brake definitions. There were updates completed to the inspection, testing, and maintenance section. Those were done in part to align closer to what OSHA provides in the 1926 standard. There was addition of operator requalification and lift director qualifications. There was a revision to the critical lift section. There was also updates to work area diagrams. And finally, we revised some of the requirements related to personnel working around cranes while attaching and moving the load. Moving back to the left column, B30.6 derricks published in July of 2025. The main update to that volume was the incorporation of the B30.30 standard for ropes. And then moving down, slings, published September of 2025. They added a non-mandatory Appendix A for sling protection. And they also had a revision for wire rope sling removal criteria. Moving back to the right column, B30.14. Side boom tractors published May of 2025. The big item there was the revised title and scope of the standard to include rotating pipe layers. That created many changes within the volume, including updating and adding definitions and figures related to that scope change. They also incorporated the B30.30 standards for ropes. And then they replaced several of the terms that they used within their volume that referred to the machine or the crane with the term pipe layer. So moving on to B30.20, low hook lifting devices published in April of 2025. That volume revised some definitions. They addressed adjustable and modular spreader bars and clamps. They included new figures for load-containing lifters. They clarified lifting devices. They added an appendix for marking of multiple rated load lifting devices, and they updated their load testing for lifting devices. B30.21 lever hoist published February of 2025. Within that revision, they incorporated B30.30 standard for wire ropes, revised many definitions, updated the product identification marking requirements. They revised sections on translation of technical and safety-related instructions and manuals. They updated tables for frequent and periodic inspections. They updated their testing requirements, and they included a new section on rigging the load. B30.27 material placement systems published September 2025. Within that update, they updated responsibilities for some of the workers around the equipment, two of which being pour supervisor and the liquid structure material supplier driver. And then they also revised definitions for short rigging and updated hand signal requirements. So that gets us up to 2026 and our current work that we're doing here. So far in 2026, we have published 3 volumes, B30.1 jacks, industrial rollers, air casters, and hydraulic gantries, B30.7 winches, B30 and B30.26 rigging hardware. There are 6 additional volumes that we plan to publish this year. Not sure if we'll get there or not, based on my previous comments. 4 out of those 6 standards are going to be reaffirmed, and I've listed that here. So B30.8 floating cranes and floating derricks is looking to be reaffirmed. B30.17 cranes and monorails, there'll be substantial revisions to that volume. And B30.18 stacker cranes, top running bridge, single and multiple girder, and top running trolley hoist has some technical changes also. The rest of them, B30.19 cableways, B30.28 balanced lifting units, and B30.32 unmanned aircraft systems used in inspection, testing, maintenance, and load handling operations are all looking to be reaffirmed. So there's also one document that is currently under development. That's B30.31, self-propelled, towed, and remote-controlled hydraulic platform transporters. So moving on to the updates for the volumes that have been released now. B30.1 jacks, industrial rollers, air casters, and hydraulic gantries. They added ASME B30.1 planning for load handling activities to their volume. They've had numerous editorial corrections, and then they also added requirements for personnel working in the immediate vicinity of the load supported by a strand jack system. B30.7 winches, updated inspection section to align with other B30 volumes, and B30.26 rigging hardware had definitions that have been revised, added, and deleted. They revised their scope to include testing. They also revised their the eye-bolt angular loading portion of their document and updated figures for load block factor multipliers. So 2 of the volumes that I listed that will have some changes that should be published later this year, B30.17 cranes and monorails. They have an updated scope to include powered lifting devices. These devices were previously termed permanent mounted magnets. They've revised definitions for commonality with other B30 volumes. They've removed definitions not used, and they updated their cab section to remove the term skeleton cab. That was done because the term skeleton cab was not used anywhere else within the volume. B30.18 stacker cranes is updating their reference to AWS D14.1 2005 to AWS D14.0 2024. That document has been updated by the AWS committee. So before we get into what work that the subcommittees are currently working on, I figured I would provide just some information on how you might be able to become involved in the B30 committee and standards work. So personally, I've been participating in B30 standards since 2013. It seems like a long time, but standards development committees aren't necessarily groups that are dominated by young people. There are a lot of very seasoned and experienced lifting professionals that belong to these committees. And personally, I've learned a lot from sitting in these meetings and just listening to all their perspectives on the different topics that we discuss. So my advice to anyone who's interested in becoming involved is to attend meetings. Meetings are probably the best way to get involved and just meet everyone and understand the different personalities in the room. ASME B30 holds meetings 3 times per year. So we currently have meetings set up for January. That's a virtual meeting, so anyone can attend online. And then we have 2 face-to-face meetings per year. Those are in May and September. And depending on the date, we may meet. We try to rotate between the eastern part of the United States and western part of the United States for convenience for the members. So all of our meetings are open to the public, and guests are certainly welcome to attend. When we talk about topics in meetings, there's phases of the meetings where members and alternates are the only ones able to vote and approve certain tasks. But before the vote occurs, there's always discussions that are had, and guests are more than welcome to be included in those discussions. Another way to participate in the standards committees are to request updates or clarification. We call them interpretations of the standard. So there are different ways that you can do that. ASME CS Connect is the website portal that ASME provides the public to do some of this work. So that CS Connect website allows the public to view upcoming meetings and dates and locations. They can also apply as a member or alternate for committees using this webpage. There's forms and other things listed on the webpage. They can submit requests for revision. They can also submit requests for interpretations. And then ultimately, once items are approved through the committee and put out for public review, there's a portal for the public to review those documents and provide comments as necessary. So now getting into the future work that we are considering. The different volumes that are considering future work right now in the near future are B30.2 overhead and gantry cranes. Some of the items that they're looking at is the addition of collision avoidance systems within their volume. They're also looking to incorporate ASME B30.30 standards for ropes. And then they're looking at changes to elastomeric bumper deceleration requirements for their volume. B30.16 overhead underhung and stationary hoists is looking to update their product safety information section, which would include decals. They want to update product identification marking requirements. They're also looking to update their inspection section descriptions, headings, and notes on tables. and to provide clarity when disassembly is required during the inspection process. They want to add clarification where to find inspection and testing requirements for trolleys. Add definitions and requirements related to testing, and then finally to update to integrated load indicating device requirements. B30.20 below the hook lifting devices are looking to update the requirements for their vacuum lifting devices, and then also add and revise some of their definitions. Finally, on this slide, B30.29 self-erecting cranes is looking to incorporate B30.30 within their volume. So a little bit further off, but within the next cycle, which for B30.30 and B30.3 tower cranes and B30.5 is roughly a three-year cycle period. B30.3 tower cranes is considering a thorough review of the entire standard. So I don't think there has been a whole lot of work on this yet. They're currently reviewing their volume to identify those areas where they're contemplating revisions. B30.5 mobile and locomotive cranes. We're currently undergoing a complete review of our sections. So the first section, which is the construction section, is looking to update our controls section and possibly include remote control requirements. We're looking to include asymmetric outrigger configurations into the construction section. Previously, it has only been in the operations section. We are looking to review access and egress for the crane and the operator's cab, and then review the operator aid section of the document. Testing, inspection, and maintenance. I don't foresee many changes happening to this portion of point 5, just because the last revision cycle we did a full rewrite where we aligned it fairly closely with the OSHA requirements. Finally, the operations section of point 5, we're reviewing qualifications and responsibilities related to riggers and signal persons. B30.23 personnel lifting systems currently is undergoing a complete review of the entire standard. One of the items that they're looking to update is to align the anchor points with baskets from the A92 requirements. So with that, I think we are at the Q&A portion of the presentation.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jeremy. I appreciate that overview of what's going on. Yeah, so we have opportunity for some Q&A. If anybody's got questions for Jeremy related to the ASME standards and the things that are reviewed, please put it into the Zoom Q&A box, and we'll get to as many as we can. First question here for you, Jeremy, is you were talking about the meetings themselves, and someone asked how many days do the meetings generally run?
Okay, great question. So currently our meetings start on a Tuesday of each week. So Tuesday is typically reserved for the subcommittee groups. Not all subcommittees meet at every group every time the main committee meets. There are some that do meet every time, though, point 5 being one of those. So point 5 is always on the Tuesday of the week. Wednesday, full day meeting for the main committee. Usually we can wrap up our business on Thursday prior to noon. So usually there's a day and a half for the main committee that's reserved for Wednesday and Thursday. And then if any of the subcommittees require further time or want to meet towards the end of the week, Thursday afternoon and Friday could be reserved for those subcommittees also.
Okay, great. Thanks. Another question is, what was revised on the scope to include testing for rigging hardware?
So I'm not really sure the detail into that. I don't sit on that committee, so I think the best way to address any of the updates that I mentioned is, I might be able to talk about them very broadly. That one I'm not so familiar with, but getting the standard and identifying the exact text is probably the best way to go about understanding what's been revised.
Okay, and kind of to that point, then, what's the best way to be able to stay informed and about the updates to the standards, and like where can somebody get those?
Yeah, sure. So the best way to stay informed, I think, would be to probably visit the ASME website. The portal is pretty user friendly. On that website, they do have access to all their standards. It is a paid access. You have to buy the standards because they're all copyrighted. Um, but that's the source for all that material. I think it's probably the best way to obtain all of it. There
Okay.
are also third-party providers, so that do provide ASME B30 standards along with other standards that you can access.
All right, great. Yeah, and authorized sellers. I'd be remiss if
Yes.
I didn't say that. I
Yes.
believe CCO has become recently an authorized seller that has it. You can download. I think the digital version of it from their website at the CCO store. I think, and I think they have it at a discount, maybe even over what is on the ASME site somehow. So
And I think another great source to keep up to date is, I mean, a lot of trainers and inspectors and other people related to the industry belong to these committees. So, your local training company might be fully aware of all the changes and might be incorporating it into their training material as we speak.
all right, great. And then the question here, anything change in the B30.5 on responsibilities of different parties in the work site?
I'm trying to recall if anything changed in the 25 volume. Um, I would have to review that further. I don't recall if anything changed. There's I did mention the while handling and moving a load, there are different requirements related to that. And what the point five committee did was we reviewed what was in OSHA 1926 regarding workers in the fall zone of the crane, and we tried to align more closely to that.
Okay. And then let's see. Oh, you mentioned about becoming involved. So the question here of how can I join the subcommittee group and become part of the ASME committee? Is an invitation required, or is there an application process that somebody would need to commit to complete?
Yeah, so there isn't an invitation required. On the website, you can go and fill out the forms. It's more uh, of a we need to know who's interested in joining the committees. Depending on the committee, like the main committee, you're required to have membership on a lower level committee, on a subcommittee to become a member on the main committee. Some of the subcommittees are fairly full. I know for point five, we do have a long list of applicants. We currently have 15 members and we're full. But you can have your name added to an applicant list and then it'll be reviewed in the future if open positions come available. But there certainly are subcommittees that have openings right now and are looking for experts to help them develop their volumes. So it really depends on the committee.
Okay. And then question here, can you provide an overview of how ASME B30 and the OSHA standards work together? Uh, Field OSHA inspectors regularly cite ASME requirements for cranes where OSHA does not have guidance.
Well, I guess I can't speak so much to OSHA. ASME and at least the B30.5 standards, our members certainly review OSHA standards and or regulations, and we try to understand them. At the last meeting, we actually had two OSHA employees at our point five meeting and at the main committee meeting. So there's some interaction, but mostly it's, as ASME B30, we sometimes are just trying to understand the requirements that they have, and where it makes sense to align, we'll align. But ultimately, we're two separate organizations, and you know, we don't always align on everything. Where we can, we'll try to align though.
Okay. And since the ASME B30.30 is now being referenced across different B30 volumes, does this mean that wire rope inspection and removal criteria will mainly be covered by B30.30 going forward, rather than being separately defined in each equipment specific volume?
So when B30.30 was developed, it was up to every other subcommittee to either adopt what 30.30 was doing. And really 30.30 was made up of the wire rope experts and some of the other experts that have a lot of familiarity with wire rope. So ultimately it's still up to the subcommittee to say if they want to follow the process identified by B30.30, or if we want to keep it in our own volume. What point five did was we worked with one of the experts who is on 3030, and all of the inspection requirements are pretty much now contained within the B30.30 volume. And you'll see that in the latest revision that was released December of 2025.
All right, thank you. Let's see. Considering that in the construction industry, the federal OSHA standard 29 CFR 1926 strictly and specifically regulates the role of the evaluator, has the B30 committee discussed or considered formally including this role in the standard to align with OSHA?
I'm not very familiar with the term evaluator, so um,
Okay.
there
So,
hasn't been any discussion at the point five level that I'm familiar with
gotcha.
regarding the evaluator.
Okay. Fair enough. Somebody else is asking about the proposed changes for signal and rigor qualifications. I assume you just refer them back to really looking at the specifics within the ASME standards, correct?
Well, those are proposed changes. We don't have a definitive understanding of um, what the group is asking, what the group is considering yet. So, what B30.5 has done is we have an ad hoc group, so a smaller group within each of the chapters of our volume. So, as a manufacturer, I'm one of the people who's on the chapter one construction section. I haven't seen all the proposals yet put forth by the section three, which would be the operations section.
Okay, great. Um, and somebody asking if we're going to circulate a copy of this presentation. So the recording of this presentation will be available within probably a week. It'll be posted on our website, NCCCOFoundation.org, as well as all the other webinars we've done. If you would like a copy of this actual the actual slides, I can put that in a PDF for you. You can email me directly at info@nccccfoundation.org. Again, happy to send you a copy of the slides if that's going to be helpful for anybody. But the full recording of this webinar will be available next week on our website. The only other questions I hear kind of it was related to I think you've covered, which is related to the process of being able to get in to be able to be part of the committees. You did mention again, you kind of covered it, but just wanted to reiterate in terms of the delays that have happened in publications. Just any thought of if that was a part of the process, or is there expected delays in the future, or how should people look at that in terms of what's being evaluated?
Well, I guess I categorize delays into things that we can sort of plan for and things that are somewhat un that we can't plan for. So, some of the editorial things that are causing delays, I think we can maybe work a little bit and plan for those activities and work them into the schedule and provide schedules that reflect those editorial reviews. I think that related to the public review of comments, that's just a difficult one because you never know what kind of comments you're going to get from the general public, and depending on the response and if the response is accepted or not, there's a whole bunch of different procedural things that may have to happen where the response or the person who commented on that item may be able to appeal that comment and the response up to a much higher level, which can add a lot of time to the development process.
That makes sense. Again, I mean,
Mhm.
you don't know what you don't know, right? And
Yes.
it just
Mhm.
depends on kind of feedback you get and things like that. Okay, that makes a lot of sense to me. Well, I think that's all the questions that we have here. Before we sign off, I just wanted to, to thank to thank you and to make sure everybody keeps an eye out for our future webinars that we are going to have on other safety and workforce research issues. We do one monthly. And you can find information about that on our social media on LinkedIn or on our website, again, at ncccofoundation.org. Um, Please, if you'd like to watch any of our previous webinars, you can find them on our website. I will also be sending a brief survey to all the attendees. I ask that you take a couple minutes to complete that. We really appreciate your feedback to figure out what we should do in the future. Thanks again to Jeremy, and thank you to everyone for joining the NCCCO Foundation webinar. We do appreciate your time and you signing in, and hope you learned a lot like I did. And we will look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks again, Jeremy.
Yep. Thank you, everyone, for attending.
Take care. Bye bye.